We're in northern Hyrule at the base of Death Mountain. Head for the peak. This is Legendary Adventures, a Legend of Zelda playthrough podcast. This week we're venturing through the third level of Four Swords Adventures, Death Mountain. The third level of Hyrulean Adventure sees players climbing Death Mountain. From grassy foothills to the dungeon, the Tower of Flames which sits on the peak. Overall, I thought it was a good set of stages. I enjoyed level 3 much more than level 2. So let's start in the Death Mountain foothills. We start in a grassy area, and find a sign which notifies us that the 4 links are wanted men, a nod to a link to the past. The opening screens require us to manage a number of soldier enemies, including at least 9 of them who hide in the grass and suddenly pop up to take shots. There are 2 options of weapons, bows and boomerangs. I grabbed a boomerang because it allowed me to snag some additional force gems. As we advance through the screens, we also come across buzz blob enemies. You'll likely recall that these enemies first appeared in A Link to the Past, and the Choo-Choo enemies received a redesign in the Wind Waker to make them resemble a buzz blob. Here, the buzz blobs borrow from the Choo-Choos and have taken on the ability to perform a jumping attack. Players are provided a bomb flower to navigate an apparent dead end. Using the sword, they can tap the wall and listen to the sound to find 2 spots, one on the right and one on the left, to bomb a wall and open the path forward. There's also the subtlest of visual hints to help players out, as the areas which can be bombed are tucked into the wall ever so slightly more than the other spots. Through the door on the right, players find a bow and a star switch, which lowers a set of blocks, allowing 4 eye switches to be hit from the opposite side. Players need to take a link through the door to the left and shoot those switches with a bow from across the pit. This reveals the path to a pair of treasure chests and the exit. A screen with dozens of buzz blobs doesn't need to be cleared in order to advance, but it will be easier if at least a good chunk of them are taken out. I found a hole leading to a Game Boy Advance screen under a bush near the center of the screen, but I didn't venture down there until after I'd cleared the screen of all enemies. But I really should have gone down. Inside is a Bombos medallion, which can be thrown down to clear an entire screen. I carried the medallion with me for a while, but ended up more or less wasting it with an accidental throw. We scale the mountain and onto the Game Boy Advance screen. After heading up for a ways, we drop back down and find an old man with a hint. He tells us there's an area with one-eyed giants known as Hebra's Hill. He says we'll never reach the summit if we meander about this area, but we must press on, focused with sole intent to reach the peak. After dropping back down again, we head east and find an area filled with dead rock enemies. These enemies first appeared in A Link to the Past. They cannot be defeated with a sword that causes them simply to turn to stone. A path to the north is blocked by pegs requiring a hammer to be knocked down. Further to the east, we find dozens more dead rock enemies and an unusual house. It has 4 flamethrowers attached to the roof, one pointing in each of the cardinal directions. The man who lives in the house tells us that it can move. He says to give it a try, so we do. When the house is pushed or pulled, it does in fact move, and the flamethrower on the opposite side of the links will also shoot out a jet of flame. This is without a doubt one of the strangest moments I've ever encountered in a Zelda game. We use the house to defeat the dead rock enemies on the screen, crushing them or burning them up. Once they're all gone, hammers appear for us to grab. To the north, we head east and come across Hebra's Hill. It features a series of fights against Hinox enemies. First 1, then 3, then an entire screen with at least 15 of them. The Hinox are big, and they take a whole lot of hits to defeat. They will charge at Link, grab him, and shake the force gems from his pockets. They also throw stones. The first fight eases us into the challenge, to get a sense of how to take them on. Lost force gems can be quickly recovered. The second fight against the 3 ups the stakes appropriately. The third fight is intended to be overwhelming. I also got through this fight entirely wrong. I attempted to fight the Hinox head-on and found I was constantly grabbed and having to recollect force gems. I died twice, but near the north side of the screen, a Hinox grabbed me, and it ended up throwing me over the obstacle that bars the path forward, allowing me to progress. It didn't feel right, but I took it. I checked a walkthrough later and realized that I'd completely overlooked an obvious cave on the east side of the screen. It contains a Quake medallion. Players are supposed to duck into that cave, grab the medallion, and reduce the Hinoxes to simpler to defeat slimes. Oh well, things still ended up working for me. On the other side of the barrier is where the hint from the old man from earlier comes into play. It's a callback to the lost hills of the original Legend of Zelda. We need to go up, up, up the mountain, continually moving forward in order to advance. At the very top of Hebra's Hill, we take on a boss of sorts, taking out a gauntlet of soldier enemies. There's a chief soldier among them, 3 green soldiers, and more than a dozen blue soldiers which burst out of a mountain wall. Once these enemies are cleared, we can move on and destroy the barrier to end the level. In the second stage of the level, the Mountain Path, we begin our ascent up Death Mountain in earnest. We're headed for the top and the Tower of Flames which sits on the peak. The music of this stage is a rendition of Black Mist. That's the theme music for the Dark World version of Death Mountain in A Link to the Past. We're greeted by the owl Kapora Gabora, right at the start of the stage. It tells us that a colossal masked bird is causing trouble up on the mountain. It appeared after Vati passed through the area. The owl asks us to help the Gorons who live on the mountain to deal with the bird. We encounter our first Goron on the very next screen. The area is covered with flames. The Goron asks us for help putting out the fires and points us to a cave which holds water jars. There are actually 3 caves in this area, and the interiors of the caves play out on the Game Boy Advance screen. The first cave holds the water jars. The second cave holds a Rock's Feather item, which we need to jump over holes in order to fully traverse across the screen. And the third cave is a pathway allowing us to reach the exit on the north end of the screen. We have to enter the first cave multiple times to get all the water we need to extinguish all of the fires. At first, I picked up the jars one at a time, but after a couple of trips through the cave, I realized it's better to use a wide formation and grab multiple pots at once, and then throw them one at a time to put out the fires. Putting out the flames blocking a path to the south allows us to grab a Force Gem, and once we're ready to exit, we go to the north. What follows is an expansion on the flame extinguishing challenge we just completed. This time it plays out across 2 screens in a vertical area. We dart in and out of caves to not only get water jars, but to navigate the area and collect items. At the base on the first screen, there are 3 caves. The cave to the left holds water pots. The center cave leads to a side-scrolling area which can be traversed to ascend the mountain. It also holds a thwomp, a callback to Link's Awakening, which in turn was a nod to the Mario series. We can stand atop this thwomp and weigh it down to move between 4 different levels to grab items. The top level holds bombs. We need to use Rock's Feather to grab them. The middle 2 levels hold hammers, and the bottom level has a chest with Force Gems. The cave to the right has a chest with Force Gems in it. There are flames to extinguish in front of the cave to the right and in front of the staircase which leads up the mountain. We use the water pots from the cave on the left to extinguish the lower flames. We can venture up through the middle cave to reach a cave entrance to the left at the top of the screen, and then jump down to a lower entrance about midway on the screen and traverse another cave, which holds water pots behind a bombable wall. We exit near the flames. We extinguish those flames in order to open a path and proceed up the mountain. On the second screen, we find another cave, and 4 bombs on an upper level we cannot reach. There are 3 black bombs and 1 white bomb. Fuses run up the cliff wall to the top. The cave holds a Goron inside. He's in the center of a roughly square-shaped room. There are walls forming concentric squares around the Goron. There are a few gaps in the wall allowing us passage to the center, but we need to push boulders in order to clear the path. The only problem is, once these boulders start moving, they don't stop, meaning we need to dodge the rolling boulders as we move in towards the center. The Goron tells us the bombs above will open a new road, but he forgot something flammable to light the fuses. We will need to find something to light them ourselves. Back on the lower level, we can take the cave on the right to reach a cave entrance on the upper right of the level. Using the hammer, we can knock down pegs. Outside this cave entrance, we can jump to a mid-level cave on the right side, and there we'll find a similar concentric square room, just like the one we found on the second level. A young Goron is at the center of this one, and there are impassable pits this time, further limiting travel. But when we start the stones blocking our path rolling, they will eventually land in those pits, creating pathways for us to walk across. The young Goron has red oil pots near him. These pots catch fire the moment we pick them up. We grab these pots and then head back up to the second level and light the fuses of the bombs. The black bobs behave similarly to the large bombs that Shadow Link sometimes tosses out on levels. They explode after a few moments, and in order to protect themselves, players need to enter a Game Boy Advance screen. The white bomb blows up to leave behind a heap of Force Gems. I wound up missing out on most of these gems in order to stay safe from the explosion from the black bombs. We proceed up the mountain by dodging boulders, some of which fall into pits which we can then use as bridges to cross these holes. On the next level of the mountain, we have to push a house that's blocking a cave aside, first by knocking down some pegs which hold the house in place. We smack the ground with a hammer to reveal a key, and we toss some more water jars to extinguish more flames before we face off with a mini-boss fight against 4 Shadow Links. One turned purple, requiring the use of Purple Link. But the fight is not really different from past Shadow Link fights. Once the color-changing Link falls, any remaining Shadow Links are instantly defeated. On the mountain peak, we again meet the owl. It tells us that it notices something amiss at Hyrule Castle and goes to investigate. Proceeding on from the owl, a passing shadow informs us of the approaching boss fight, which begins on the very next screen. The Helmarok King returns from the Wind Waker. It's fought in a big arena that's not quite square because of 2 notches cut out of the upper corners. There are 6 bomb flowers spread out throughout the arena, and 2 circular huts near the center. Each hut holds a hammer if players need one. The hut on the left also has a hint tile, telling players to hit the Helmarok King with bombs to knock it out of the sky. The Helmarok King attacks by dive bombing across the arena and dropping stones from the sky. As it dives down, we can throw a bomb at it to hit it. It will then crash into one of the huts. It took me longer than it really should have to figure out what to do once it crashes into a hut, but we're supposed to duck inside the hut and then hit its head with the hammer. After doing this a couple times, the mask breaks. Once the mask is off, the Helmarok King simply falls to the ground when hit with a bomb, and we can damage it by slashing away at the comb on the top of its head. It takes several rounds of this after the helmet is removed. Honestly, I felt the fight went on for a bit too long, but eventually the bird fell. And with the Force Gems it dropped, I was able to get the 2,000 needed to break the barrier and end the stage. If playing in multiplayer mode, the Tingle Tower appears after every second stage. On the 3rd level, the tower unlocks the 3rd portal, which is the Hammer Tag game. It is, as it says, a tag game. The player who is it has a hammer and tries to hit the other player. If they hit someone, that player becomes it. Each player has a timer, and that timer only runs while that player is it. The game ends if the It's player timer reaches 1 minute. The player who is it for the least amount of time is the winner, and the player who is it for the longest loses. The first player to be it is seemingly chosen at random.
Well, our game's gonna be over pretty
First
fast.
guy to
Oh
be it
no!
is player 2, here's the hammer.
Players are told that they cannot roll. The it player is required to give other players a 3-second head start.
Oh, I have to get close to you.
You're fast.
Come here. Ah, I got you. Ha 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 ha.
The arena is split into a lower level and an upper level. The east side of the screen appears to be open, but the screen will not scroll while the game is underway. There are 2 moon gates on the upper level.
Ah, come here. Where'd the thingies go? I'm gonna be stuck. Oh, here we go. Okay.
They appear and disappear at semi-regular intervals. In the Dark World, there is a maze-like area for players to attempt to hide in.
There's a maze? I have to follow a maze? Get back here. I see you. I can see you.
Oh,
That's right. That's what happens to people who run away from people with hammers.
Force Gems also fall from the sky in the Light World to tempt players into potentially opening themselves up to being tagged.
Hey! No! 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 You knew I would go after the gems! You stink! You knew it! You knew it.
I knew no such thing.
Oh, yes, you did. You backed yourself into a corner on that one.
While I was clearly winning at the start of the match, Mandy managed to use the Dark World maze to get me to run up the clock. I ultimately still came out on top.
No, go away. Go away. No, 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 go away. Stink. How long is this gonna last?
So you get a minute on your clock.
Stop
which is right now.
That was closer than I thought.
That was close.
That was closer than I thought it would be. I thought I was gonna get a minute real fast there.
I was given 500 Force Gems for my victory, and Mandy was given 300. Then, there's a rain of Force Gems from the Sky and the Light World, which players can grab in a free-for-all before they head west to meet Tingle.
Hello, Tingle.
This time, the only person who never it was, what's this? You were all it at least once, no prizes.
Well, there's only 2 of us.
Oh, that one was a lot of fun.
It was okay.
Chasing each other around.
It wasn't bad. I kind of wish the course was a little bit more complex. Just a little bit.
Uh-huh.
I think too complex, and then, yeah, you're gonna waste your minute real fast. We got really close to both of us hitting a minute. You were only 5 seconds away. I hit the minute, so I guess it's probably a good course. I just, I wanted a place where I could potentially hide, or a secret tunnel. Do you know what I mean? I wanted a cave, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something to just give me one more place to hide.
Yeah.
But I think one more layer would have been fun on that one. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good game. I like the noise that it makes. Like the little squeaky hammer if you don't get it.
Now, onto the third stage of the level. The position of the Tower of Flames atop Death Mountain, and even its outer facade and design, recalls the Tower of Hera from A Link to the Past. Once inside, however, it immediately becomes clear that this is a very different space. The music is an arrangement of the Death Mountain theme from the original Legend of Zelda. It features industrial-sounding drums, and the melody is played on a moody electric organ. Very fitting for Death Mountain. The Tower of Flames, true to its name, is a fire-themed dungeon. It's filled with lava and flame-emitting devices, including statues which resemble bulldogs that shoot flames from their mouths. There is no central room or cluster of rooms. The tower is just a series of distinct challenges to push through as players constantly move forward. We encounter these bulldog statues as the very first obstacle of the dungeon. Players have to time their movements to avoid getting hit by fire from the first set of statues. A second set continuously spews flames, barring the player's path. There are 3 visible crystal switches, which players are sure to notice floating about in the lava. Players will have to notice 2 pots sitting just in front of these statues. They're slightly obscured by the pilot light, or the harmless flames, which are emitted by the statue at all times between their larger bursts of flames. Underneath the pot on the left is a floor switch, which reveals a slingshot for players to collect. We can then use the slingshot to hit 4 crystal switches needed to shut off the second set of statues. Again, only 3 of these switches are visible, but we can intuit the presence of the 4th just off-screen based on the presence of the other 3. We fire a charged-up shot to the left while facing away from the top right switch in order to hit the 4th. Players dodge through a second round of flame-emitting devices and proceed upstairs. Here they run into a maze created by these flame-emitting statues. It's a very clear callback to Ocarina of Time's Fire Temple and the maze of flame that is found there. When players get close to a statue, it begins shooting out flame, forming the walls of the maze. There are some large force gems which move away from the player if they approach, but boomerangs found in the northwestern part of the maze allow us to grab them from a distance. The exit is found in the southwestern corner. After the maze, players are forced into a combat challenge where they take on a number of hard-hat beetles. This isn't the most interesting of challenges. The whole gimmick of the hard-hat beetle is that they take a lot of hits, and they bounce Link back, while bouncing back significantly themselves as well. Generally, it's easiest just to knock them down a hole, while avoiding being knocked down yourself. I used pots to keep my distance while taking out many of them. Up one floor, we find a moving platform and a number of gaps which Link cannot cross, or be thrown across. In the room to the west, players face a trap, where objects on the floor, including tiles, will rise up and fling themselves at Link. Once all of the objects are gone, the exit opens and Rock's Feather appears. I noticed only the open exit at first. I had to double back to the room once I realized that I must have missed the item. Getting Rock's Feather means that we can leap across the gaps on the platforms in order to proceed up the tower. Up a floor, we dodge flames to press a set of switches in a box formation to shut off these flames. A locked door to the west bars our path, and there's a hole hidden under a row of pots to the north. Falling down this hole and onto a Game Boy Advance screen allows us to proceed through the only area that really recalls the Tower of Hera, in that it's a vertical navigation challenge. We proceed up a set of stairs, fall down a hole on the right, go up another set of stairs, grab a key from a chest, then climb up a third set of stairs to emerge back onto the TV. We fight our way through a combat challenge with a ball and chain soldier with a fiery weapon. It creates a ring of fire around itself as it swings the ball and chain, meaning we need to jump over the fire and use downward thrusts to take it out. We then move on through a number of fire bar obstacles. We use crystal switches to reverse the direction of the rotation of the fire bars in order to safely walk by them. I swapped out Rock's Feather for a bow in order to shoot ice switches and to reveal force gems. We swap back to Rock's Feather in a room with moving platforms that we ride to avoid the fire bars. We can drop down to a Game Boy Advance screen through a hole on the lower right corner in order to get the feather back. The mini-boss is a fight against 4 Shadow Links. This particular fight was a little trickier, as there are several flame-emitting statues around the outer edge, and a large hole in the center of the arena where players can fall down into lava. I died twice before I took out all of the Shadow Links. One turned red, requiring me to use that color of link to take it out. The loss of life is not a big deal. I found the extra lives, or force fairies as they're called in this game, to be so common that I was never concerned when I died. Up a level, we platform across a number of gaps to round up treasure chests. There's a Goron in the northeast corner who hints that we will need bombs. He says they'll be required to take out the monsters up ahead, which, based on his description, we can intuit to be Dodongos. The bombs are revealed by using a box formation on a set of switches between a pair of fire-breathing statues in the southwest corner of the room. The boss is 3 Dodongos. They most closely resemble their design from the original Legend of Zelda based off their look and behavior. They shuffle around the room in a moderate pace. There is, however, one update which brings them somewhat in line with the version seen in Ocarina of Time. The Dodongos now clearly open their mouths for us to throw a bomb inside. If we don't throw a bomb in quickly enough, they will breathe fire. The Dodongo did not have any real attack in the original game beyond touch damage. Still, this fight feels much closer in design to the original, with no real twist that we saw with Ocarina of Time or Oracle of Seasons. After taking out the boss, we continue up the tower, but instead of immediately finding the maiden, we find a door which is blocked by a constantly spewing flame. This pushes us to the east onto a balcony on the tower. Here again we meet the owl Kaepora Gaebora. The owl tells us that darkness has returned to Hyrule Castle, and that there must also be another imprisoned shrine maiden within the castle. The owl departs, and we find the path that was blocked by flames is now open. We head through the now open door, break the barrier, and free the maiden. It is the Green Maiden. She commends Link's bravery, comparing him to the Knights of Hyrule. She explains that there are 4 sacred jewels which can open the path to the heavens, and the Knights of Hyrule are tasked with protecting them. The Knights, however, have disappeared with the rise of the current dark forces plaguing Hyrule. There is a pause as Link apparently speaks, though we don't see any dialogue from him. The maiden says that we will then head to Hyrule Castle on the recommendation of the owl. We will re-liberate Hyrule Castle next week. If you want to follow along, please subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, thanks! You're awesome! I am Paul Riley, and I will see you next week.